There is a fish the United States government once loved so much, it built ponds for it at the base of the Washington Monument. In the year 1877, federal officials imported it from Germany, bred it in the capital, and began shipping it across the country in railroad tank cars as a gift to the American people. Citizens wrote more than 2,000 letters a year begging for their share. The head of the U.S. Fish Commission promised it would feed the rural poor and said it ranked with trout and sold for the same price per pound. And then, within a single generation, that same government turned around and began pouring poison into American rivers to wipe this fish out. In one operation, in 1962, 2 state agencies dumped a chemical toxicant into 225 miles of the Green River, much of it to kill this one fish. It has fed human beings for 8,000 years. It is the first fish our species ever farmed, and today it is still the most farmed fish on the planet. And yet across most of the United States, it is officially classified as a trash fish, a worthless nuisance you are encouraged to kill on sight and leave on the bank to rot. That is not an accident. That is a policy decision. And the story of how the most successful food fish in human history was rebranded as American garbage tells you almost everything you need to know about who decides what you are allowed to eat. Welcome to Forgotten Roots. The archive opens today on the floodplains of central China near the Yellow River. The year is roughly 6,000 years before the birth of Christ. At a settlement we now call Jiahu, in what is today Henan Province, Neolithic farmers were doing something no human being had ever been recorded doing before. They were managing fish. Archaeologists who studied the bones left behind in their refuse pits found a pattern that does not occur in the wild. Fish of carefully selected sizes, harvested in a way that only makes sense if the people were raising them on purpose. The fish was the common carp, and that single discovery pushed the origin of fish farming back 8,000 years, making the carp the oldest aquaculture animal ever identified. This was before the pyramids, before writing, before the wheel reached China. People were already farming this fish. The reason they chose carp comes down to a handful of biological facts that make it almost unfairly suited to feeding people. Carp are tough. They survive in warm, low-oxygen, muddy water that would kill a trout or a bass within hours. They breed fast and in enormous numbers. They grow quickly. And, most importantly, they eat low on the food chain, plants, algae, insects, and the organic matter at the bottom of a pond, none of which costs a farmer a single coin. You are not buying feed. The pond feeds the fish, and the fish feeds you. The ancient Chinese took this even further. When raising carp under its own name was outlawed during the Tang Dynasty, because the word for carp sounded like the emperor's family name, farmers simply began raising several different carp species together in the same pond. One fed at the surface, one in the middle, one along the bottom, each eating what the others ignored. That single workaround produced one of the most efficient food systems ever invented, capable of generating staggering amounts of protein from a single acre of water. From China, the carp spread along every trade route the ancient world had. The philosopher Confucius thought so highly of it that he named his own son after the fish, as a symbol of good fortune. The oldest known manual on fish farming, written around 475 years before Christ, is devoted to it. By the age of Charlemagne, the carp had reached Europe, and for the next 1,000 years, it became the quiet backbone of survival across the continent. Monasteries dug carp ponds so their monks would have protein through the long fasting seasons. Bohemian kings ordered entire networks of them built. And to this day, in the Czech Republic, in Poland, in Germany and Slovakia, the centerpiece of the Christmas Eve table is not turkey and it is not ham. It is carp, sold live from barrels in the town square, exactly the way it has been for 500 years. This was never a poor man's last resort. It was a prized, celebrated food across 3 continents and 10,000 years of human history, which is what makes what happened next, in America, so strange. When the United States Fish Commission imported its German carp in 1877, it was not making a mistake. It was finally following the rest of the world. The Commission's director, a scientist named Spencer Baird, looked at a country whose native rivers were already being stripped bare by overfishing, and at a rural population that badly needed cheap protein, and saw the obvious answer. So the federal government went all in. It built the national carp ponds on the grounds of the Washington Monument. It bred the fish by the tens of thousands and loaded them onto special railroad cars that carried them to nearly every state and territory in the Union. Congressmen handed out carp to their constituents like favors. By the early 1880s, Baird's office was receiving more than 2,000 requests a year. For one brief moment, the carp was an American success story, a government program that actually worked, putting fresh food into farm ponds from one coast to the other. And then the people who had something to lose started paying attention. Because as the carp thrived, a different American industry was being born: recreational sport fishing. Anglers wanted clear water and prized game fish: bass, trout, walleye, sunfish. And the carp, rooting along the bottom of lakes and stirring up the sediment, was in the way. It did not take long for the very fish the government had just finished celebrating to be reclassified as a rough fish, a trash fish, worthless and even harmful, accused of crowding out the species anglers actually wanted to catch. And so the same government machinery that had shipped carp across the country in the 1870s began, in the 20th century, to systematically destroy it. State fish and game departments adopted a chemical poison called rotenone as what they openly described as a reset button. Pour it into a lake, kill every fish living there, and restock the water with game species for sport. By 1949, 34 states were doing this as a matter of routine. In 1962, Utah and Wyoming poisoned 225 miles of the Green River in a single operation. None of this was ever about food. It was about a different kind of money, not protein on a family's table, but fishing licenses, rods, reels, boats, and bait. In 1950, a federal law began funneling the taxes collected on fishing gear directly into stocking and protecting game fish. The carp had no lobby, and the people it fed best, the rural poor, had no seat at the table. And here is the part worth sitting with. A century later, almost nothing has changed except the size of the bill. Today, the federal government is spending well over $1 billion to keep the carp's Asian cousins out of the Great Lakes in order to protect a sport and commercial fishing industry worth around $7 billion a year. Meanwhile, the rest of the planet is doing the exact opposite. China farms more carp than any nation on Earth. It remains one of the most important food fish across much of Asia and Eastern Europe. The world never stopped eating the fish that America decided to poison. We spend fortunes destroying for free what billions of people gladly pay to put on their plates. But the single most important fact in this entire story is this: the system still works. The same 8,000-year-old method that fed Neolithic China, medieval monasteries, and Christmas tables across Europe will work in your own backyard right now. Carp remain one of the hardiest, most forgiving fish a complete beginner can raise. A single pond, or even a tank, stocked with carp and fed on kitchen scraps, duckweed, and whatever grows for free in the water, can put more protein on your table than almost any animal you could keep on the same patch of ground. This is exactly the kind of quiet, independent food system we built the Self-Sufficient Backyard Blueprint to teach, a complete, step-by-step guide to raising your own food and feeding your family without asking permission from the people who get to decide what counts as garbage and what counts as dinner. If that idea speaks to you, The link is waiting below. One honest note before you begin. A few states still restrict keeping live carp, so take 5 minutes and check your local regulations first. The deeper story here was never really about a fish. It is about how something free, abundant, and ancient can be quietly redefined as worthless the moment it stands in the way of something profitable. The carp did not fail. It succeeded for 8,000 years. It was simply feeding the wrong people at the wrong person's expense. So the question worth carrying with you is this: how many other forgotten foods, how many other free and self-sufficient systems are sitting in that same blind spot right now, not because they do not work, but because nobody powerful has a reason to let you remember them? If this archive opened something for you, subscribe to Forgotten Roots and ring the bell. Every share keeps this knowledge alive. The next vault opens soon.